before that, Ronan O'Gara. Good morning to you.
Hi Adrian, how are you?
Not too bad. Wayne Rooney, the greatest footballer of all time?
No. Great player, but not the greatest of all time.
Well, I have two Cork people in my ear now, and that's probably the subcontext here, is it?
I know, but sure. It's obviously it's a debate that no one is going to win, but the greatest footballer of all time it's too hard to compare generations, but I think you're looking at Ronaldo, Messi, Pele. They're three that jump out to me anyway. Zidane.
Yeah, my favourite footballer of all time. I've misrepresented my own point.
Most improved footballer is Benzema, I think. I'm only appreciating how good he is now. Jesus, game against Chelsea.
Sensational.
Yeah, I didn't realise. Obviously in France, he's a big personality, big story. But I was kind of wondering what the fuss was about. Then I kind of, in the peeing rain in Stamford Bridge, I kind of realised, well, that's what a striker does, isn't it? Wow.
Is he loved in France?
Yeah. I sorry, loved. I don't know. I kind of was wondering, like, how is this guy in the same conversation for Ballon d'Or? As much as I could understand around the table there the other day, and then you could see it that night why he is in the discussion. I think obviously what he did to Paris Saint-Germain, first of all, obviously was notable, and then to back it up against Chelsea was and he's been doing it for a long time, I believe, if you get into the stats and the data.
Yeah, class, ruthless in a way that when Chelsea got their opportunities, they weren't in the same category at all. I have to say, in terms of stuff that we thought we were talking to you about off the bat this morning, that wasn't high on the agenda. Where do you want to jump in?
I enjoy football, Gaelic football, or
I mean more in the world of Ronan O'Gara, the week that's been. Where do you start?
Standard week. I was talking to Tommy off air, and a busy week, and no, it's just probably that's perception versus reality. It's very like that. It's just that's banished door on the sideline. Top 14 management contested 4 decisions, and I get a 2-week ban for it. Which I need to get better at. I didn't obviously read the small print. You're not allowed to contest any decision, so you have to be kind of robotic behaviour, but I find that difficult at times, but something I have to get better. And obviously you can understand that I can't say anything really on the Urias situation because I have a hearing next Wednesday, so I don't want to jeopardise anything there.
Yeah, and without getting into the nuts and bolts of that, is that you just like the and feel free to figure your way around this, obviously, in terms of with that in mind. You're just on the sideline there. It's the context of a late turnover and you're lost in the game, basically. Is that what's going on the sideline there at the end? Those pictures that we've seen. Mostly.
Come on, I know it's early in the morning, Adrian, but you can sell it a little bit better than that. A little turnover. We were under a sustained attack for 3 minutes potentially, if not more, and showing dogged, incredible doggedness and I suppose pride in keeping our line intact from a try, which would have been a big turning point. So I celebrated that in my way, which was kind of a bit of a fist pump, but pretty standard really at celebration in this term, but that's as far as it got really.
Does what happened on the sideline permeate its way into the playing group? And I mean that in sort of a positive sense. Does that get them G'd up a little bit for what is going to be a trilogy against this team over the next little while? The familiarity and the breeding of contempt.
Yeah, yes and no. And I think it's depending on what angle you want to try and, I suppose, create an opportunity or a potential talking point. But I think the series playing pros are able to see past that. But you got to also remember too, we have every potential culture in the world, and the fact that you have people from all over the world representing Stade Rochelet against Bordeaux. So some people might think it's a great thing. Other people have no interest in the coach being on the sideline. So it's very, very, I suppose, individual taste. From my point of view, it just felt right in the last number of weeks, just to probably go down there to, I suppose, maybe to potentially show unity, while on any other day you can see much more in the stand, and there's plenty of logic to be in the stand all the time.
Yeah, because like obviously in a rugby sense, it's maybe it's more of a French thing that you do get coaches down there, but obviously they tend not to be. You mentioned at one point that it was important for your players to hear your voice. Is that like a sense that you would like more leadership on the pitch that you're currently not seeing, that you're working on, or where is that coming from?
No, there would always be like that. It just, I think you have to probably a little bit of context too, in the fact that we've played a lot of rugby in COVID situations where you had empty stadia, so your message was easily passed. Nowadays it's drowned out, but your capacity, I suppose, to transfer information from the sideline to, we'll say, your winger or your second centre can happen nearly instinctly. So that is a good, I suppose, opportunity for getting information. But as you say, if you're coming in every few minutes with information, it means that your prep has missed something. But just away games in France, there's very little margins between them. Well, with us especially, I think we've kind of had 5 bonus point defeats this season, which means you lose by less than 5. So at any stage in those games, the victory was probably there, and we didn't get over the line. But the last 3 weeks has been probably a change in mindset, a change in tempo, and a change in confidence levels, I believe. So tomorrow we start a back-to-back with Bordeaux. The top 14 is over for me. It was never a trilogy. It was 4 points available that we needed against Bordeaux. That's done. That's parked. It's now Champions Cup campaign.
Is there any pre-match protocol between coaches typically at these games where you have to encounter each other, or will you just be giving each other's a
bit of fromage and a vin rouge?
Pre-match. I mean, I'm on board with this, Ronan. I won't lie to you.
Yes, everything is possible. You're damn right. There could be receptions for 3 hours for the coaches before, and no, there isn't. If you're our group or out of the group, I came across a few of the Bordeaux players the last day, a few of the foreigners that were not involved or injured or not involved in the game, and it was you could see the kind of the red wine kind of lips on them. It was very funny, because it's the best wine in the world, and they're obviously can't do anything, so they're inside in the lodges, and they're obviously allowed to have a glass or two. But it was just I said, geez, it's those little things that make the difference when you're looking for a different experience, taking them out of South Africa or Australia or New Zealand or anywhere around the world, really.
That's definitely a culture I could jump right in on, I have to say. Come here, just one last one on the game itself. And I was reading your column in the Examiner this morning about the IE West kick at the end, and your rule the only rule that you were saying that you've broken over the last while about not giving feedback to kickers, that seemed odd to me in some ways, in the sense that there's probably nobody better to tap IE West on the shoulder and say, in terms of the experience that you have, the sessions you've done, the Dave Allreds and other coaches I'm sure that you've been exposed to, and say, here, listen, have you thought about this? Yeah,
but there's the question then I come straight back at you with, Adrian, when he has thought about it, what happens next? Do you get me?
As in he's thinking about you more than he is about himself.
There's a lot in that, and I experienced that with a great player as Richie Mwanga. It was very challenging relationship at the start, because I probably saw it one way, he saw it a different way, but I can only recommend, and it's up to the player to take on board. And that's what I firmly believe, because kicking coaches are crutches, but essentially it comes down to, I want to do this, but I think that has to be a mental shift first rather than a physical shift. So I have a great relationship with IE West. But it took to this stage in the kind of the relationship to get to this point where I suppose he opened up his trust to me, and I wanted to just, I suppose, remedy a little bit in his approach. And it wasn't a complete reprogramming, far from it. It was just very, very pleasing, I suppose, knowing inside the suffering that he has had to endure as a kicker, his capacity to look in the mirror and want to get better, and then seeing the fruition of that made me very, very happy. And why you get involved in coaching, because you know, I enjoy a fella who, in a club game, who kisses his fist as a celebration of his work, because it becomes, you know, you're an individual sport, and then you're playing a team sport. That's the life of a kicker. You know, you look at, I try and compare it to a lot of people I work with, where you see the boys last night at the Masters, every time they're on the tee, you know, they play a drive and they position it. It's the exact same for a kicker. You know, if you're a kicker on a team and you have 8 shots at goal, 8 minutes of the 80, every eyes are on you. That's a lot in the game. A lot in the game. And I think it's probably that appreciation of, well, what am I bringing to this team, or what can I bring to this team? Because no one else, you know, like, they don't need that skill set, but all his other 14 mates on the team are very dependent on his, I suppose, work.
Yeah. That is definitely an interesting insight into it. Have you been surprised by the reaction to the England stuff?
I didn't see any reaction, genuinely. I did a 7-minute interview on Sunday, and we had my mother-in-law arrived, so we had Sunday dinner, and then everything has been very normal. I didn't get a text. I didn't see anything.
Well, there's been headlines galore here, and particularly across the water, and articles in all the big papers over there about...
Yeah, I spoke to Tony Lean, obviously, in the Examiner about it, because he'd be well tuned in, and he said there was a reaction, and I said, well, like, what people don't see is the questions that's asked, you know, I suppose. So I got asked the question, and I gave my honest answer to the question.
It'd have been bigger news if you'd have said, actually, no, I'm not interested in the England job.
Yeah, but that's not true, you know, I suppose. Like, I think I was listening to you obviously in the football section, but you know, your playing days as opposed to your coaching days are unrelated. There's nothing of similarity. It's like a complete different career. And I know we're talking the same sport, but it has zero to do with it. Like, what I did as a player has no relevance to what I'm trying to do now, or what I'm hoping to achieve now, or the enjoyment I get now. As a player, it's just poles apart. It's incomparable, Adrian. I can't stress that enough, that how things change too when you get out, and how you see things, and how I suppose your mindset changes, and how you view, I suppose, different potential opportunities.
Yeah.
And sorry, do you mean that in the sense of you played against England so much and therefore that's irrelevant now?
No, I mean it in everything, in the fact that as a player, when you're playing for Munster, and your probably values are, you know, hard work, and we've got to, you know what I mean, playing an English team, we've got to get stuck into these boys, and they'll have a soft underbelly if we keep going at them, stuff like that. But then you kind of go into coaching, but coaching is so different to that. You're kind of like an individual entity, and you're I suppose hovering above stuff, and you're looking at well, if I was put myself in there with those players, or with that group, would I make a difference? That they're all the kind of things that happen in my head. Anyway, playing England as a player for Ireland obviously was hugely important, and you never underestimate that. But it was a hypothetical question that I suppose if it was anywhere warm, I would have some thinking to do. I haven't put myself in that process where I've had to think.
Yeah, like I'd be surprised if there was anybody who had like that sort of kind of loyal mentality, or kind of overly loyal mentality. Like, I mean, you look at say even the RFU at the moment, and Conor O'Shea being involved there. I don't think anybody like raised their eyebrows because there was an Irishman involved in the English setup.
I think it would probably be a little bit different for me, to be fair.
Okay.
I think so. I think obviously from maybe my background and maybe what I did in the green jersey, and I think that's a very positive for me. But as I say, playing to coaching, it's two different careers. It's not aligned for me.
When you speak there about getting so much joy out of seeing the impact you're having on West's career, for example, and some of the other players in your team, does that make you kind of inclined to think that, geez, I'd love to stay in a club game just that little bit longer, because you can have that day-to-day impact as opposed to, say, on the test level?
Yeah, I will be in the club game. I'll be here for the medium term. That's for certain. You can never say for certain, but that's
the plan.
What I've signed to do. And once you sign, I'm old school in that regard. I think that's very important. I don't like the fact that things can change with a phone call. I think when you sign, you consider, well, I may have to sit and suffer for 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. But when you sign up to something, that for me means commitment. I like that word. I like getting committed to something. So for me, I'm all in.
Clive Woodward was talking about that club versus country thing during the week. Is it a step up? He was suggesting it was a step up to be an international coach. Is it in your book?
I think in a lot of cases, yes. In other situations, when you're coaching, I suppose, for example, on a daily basis, Antonio, Skelton, Aldred, Carbarlo, Batia, Dante, Lades, Dula.
Not bad.
I simply have. No, I'm just trying to make the point that, where you'd like to get my club or any club is to, I have more availability with the players. You'd like to have them performing as well in a yellow or black jersey as well as they are in the blue jersey. I think that's what really excites me, the capacity to gel a team of different nationalities, different cultures, different philosophies, gel them together, and boys being able to express themselves on a pitch. Got to remember, it can become complicated. Other times it become very, very simple if my message is clear.
The context that we are sort of dancing around in terms of the England job is that for any Irish person to be involved with England is this philosophical. I'm sure you were involved in club dressing rooms, maybe particularly over the years, where the 800 years comes up and the relationship, that uneasy relationship between England and Ireland. But are you saying that none of that is a barrier, or what? Sorry, what is your view on that bit? Because that's the bit that, like, Quinny was on during the week and he was saying you just don't go there. Like, that aspect of, that's the England context. It's not like we're talking about France or we're talking about New Zealand. That's the context of this gig.
That's Quinny trying to ring me, sorry.
He's trying to clarify his comments now.
No, I'm looking at it from a pure sporting point of view, Adrian. I know, like, you got to understand, like, there's something inside you if you're a competitor that if you can kind of arm yourself with decent ammunition to have a crack off winning a World Cup or winning a Six Nations, and you were the coach of that really, really stimulates me. Whatever nation it is. I think probably from a distance, I suppose, fail to understand or appreciate how I may be wired. And I think we're in a professional game where the opportunities are, when you look at, the Rugby World Cup, it's not like a soccer World Cup in the fact that there's probably 8 to 10 teams who have the capacity to win the World Cup. So if you were to get a crack at it with a team that has genuine, I suppose, ambition to win it, you'd be a fool not to consider it.
Big game for you tomorrow. It's not far off. You mentioned about Park in the first game. There's no sense of powder dry in a way that there's been for the Irish teams. It's full bore. sort of week in, week out. Does that mean you can or can't tweak things finally before we let you off? You can or can't tweak things from last weekend?
I know you have to tweak. That's most definite. But I suppose, one of the things that jumps out at me this week is because how competitive the top 14 is and how challenging it is. It feels like a knockout game nearly every week, Adrian. It's hard for you to probably appreciate that, while when you were a player with Munster, you could just shift, I suppose, or you could sense the difference in the shift on a Monday morning, 6-7 days before your big cup match. That hasn't happened this week because last week's 4 points were very, very important. But it's in France, there's a huge focus on the short term. The short term happens every 5-7 days. You have a new challenge. So we're aware of that. We're excited about going to Bordeaux tomorrow. It's a big game. We have, I'd like to think, unfinished business in this competition. We gave it a brilliant rattle last year. The boys have got their juices flowing from that, and we want to roll up our sleeves tomorrow.
Good stuff. Will go well.
Yeah, cheers, lads.
Thanks for Ronan O'Gara on the line there from La Rochelle, ahead of a pretty big weekend from, and interesting stuff across the board as always from Ronan. Maybe primarily the cheese and wine on. That's a culture I think we could introduce around here.
He's obviously well aware of your inclination for both of those foodstuffs.
I just think that we could introduce like a pre-AM, if we had like a 7 o'clock, the pre-show meeting that we have.
Yeah.
Like 7 o'clock sort of glass of wine.
Well, I was just to pull the curtain back here, I literally said this to Adrian in the office last week, we should do wine and cheese on a Friday morning, and Adrian was like a little bit hesitant about it, as if he's got like work to do after the show or something like that. I genuinely think we should just do that as a slot. Today will be perfect, Connacht against Leinster, but we've had we pussyfooted around the idea, and now we've got no cheese and no wine in studio, and we can't properly mark this great occasion.